Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I'm Emily Bader, the Director of Grants here at the Bob Woodruff Foundation. For those of you who are new to us, the Bob Woodruff Foundation finds, funds, shapes, and accelerates equitable solutions that help our impacted veterans, service members, their families, and caregivers thrive. So a big part of our work is focused on supporting our Got Your Six network, which is our network of both grantees and local partners. And it's great to see so many of you here today, since this programming is really designed especially for you. Through our grants program, BWF is really focused on providing funding to programs that improve the overall health and well-being of our military veteran community. This year, our grants program provided over $7.3 million to more than 70 programs across the country serving the military veteran population. And our Got Your Six network also includes our local partners in over 115 communities who are coordinating and supporting the efforts of over 3,000 individual organizations who are all working collectively to address the needs of veterans in their communities. This network includes collaboratives that are located in every region across the country and range from really small towns to large metropolitan areas. Some of these local partner collaboratives work directly with veterans in need, and that may look like providing critical services such as food pantries, transitional housing, mental health services, and case management. And other partners operate on a small scale with more limited resources and funding to address the needs of their veteran population. So this Got Your Six network of both grantees and community partners was really the impetus for asking Stefanie and her team at Legal Services Corporation to lead this session for us. In 2021, 92% of our local partners reported to us that veterans who were coming in their door were looking for legal assistance, but only 20% of those partners reported being able to fully satisfy these veterans' legal needs. This gap in service provision is echoed in national data that we have from 2017, where we've learned that low-income veterans and other military personnel received inadequate or no legal assistance for 88% of their civil legal issues. And this is a huge issue because civil legal issues, which range from threatened evictions to denial of benefits, are often the greatest obstacle to a veteran's health, housing, stability, and well-being. So even though it's such a significant issue, these needs are often going unmet. LSC also recognized this disconnect between veterans' needs and the legal resources available to them, which is part of why they started convening a veterans task force. And this task force recently published a report full of recommendations detailing how legal aid, law firm and corporate law and the government communities really have the power and resources to come together and fill this gap. So we really encourage you to review that report and circulate it amongst your networks if you haven't already. You can find it on the Legal Service Corporation website, in your event invitation, and in the reminder that Hunter sent this afternoon. Today's panelists played a really crucial role in this report. So we are joined by our moderator, Stefanie Davis, Senior Assistant General Counsel and Ethics Officer at Legal Services Corporation, and our panelists, Will Gunn, Vice President for Legal Affairs and General Counsel at Legal Services Corporation, Nicole Perez, Director of Client Services and Compliance at Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles, and Stephen Moss, Partner at Holland & Knight LLP and Founding Chair of Mission United. You can access their full bios in the chat box. Hunter is posting them now. Stefanie, Will, Nicole, and Stephen, thank you so much for helping us all get a little smarter on this topic, especially right before the holidays. So for all of you who are joining us, our hope is really that you leave today's session with a better understanding of the civil legal issues that veterans are experiencing, how to identify those needs, and how to connect veterans with the attorneys who can help them resolve these issues. So without further ado, I will pass it over to Stefanie to lead today's discussion.
Wonderful. Thank you, Emily, for that kind introduction and for inviting us to speak with everyone here today. We are so honored to be with all of you and look forward to talking about our work, providing legal assistance to veterans, and exploring the ways that all of us here today can work together to ensure that veterans have access to all the resources that they need, including legal assistance. Welcome to the audience. For those of you who are not familiar with the Legal Services Corporation, we are the largest single funder of free civil legal assistance in the country. We fund 132 independent nonprofit legal aid organizations with more than 850 offices serving every state, territory, and the District of Columbia. We were created by Congress in 1974, and we currently receive the majority of our funding through congressional appropriations, which is what we use to fund our grantees. Our grantees assist people with a wide range of civil legal issues, as Emily mentioned, including family law like custody or domestic violence issues, housing issues like eviction and foreclosure, debt collection, income maintenance, and VA benefits claims. LSC funds legal assistance to households earning 125% or less of the federal poverty guidelines. What that means in practical terms is that for calendar year 2021, that's approximately $16,000 for a household of one person and $33,000 for a household of four. Unfortunately, and as you likely know, many veterans fall within LSC's client population. Again, as Emily mentioned, most veterans who experience civil legal problems cannot obtain any or adequate legal assistance with their problems. According to our 2017 Justice Gaps study, 71% of households that had a veteran or an active duty service member in them reported experiencing a civil legal problem in the preceding year. But only about 12 of those households received any or adequate legal assistance. 21% of those households reported having 6 or more civil legal problems in the preceding year. Those data combined with our leadership and our grantees' longstanding dedication to addressing veterans' legal issues led our board of directors to create the Veterans Task Force in 2018. The task force was composed of 43 members coming from the legal aid, corporate legal, law department, private bar, academic, government, veteran service organization, and nonprofit communities to study ways to improve legal access for veterans. Sam Holmes at the Bob Woodruff Foundation served on our task force, and his perspective, both from the Woodruff Foundation and as a veteran, were invaluable to the task force's work and to developing our recommendations. The task force's mission was fourfold: to raise awareness about the civil legal issues experienced by veterans, to identify ways to strengthen relationships between civil legal aid providers and other organizations serving veterans, to highlight model programs that provided effective integrated services to veterans, and to recommend strategies for engaging attorneys on a pro bono basis to provide legal assistance. The task force issued its report in June of this year and made 13 recommendations to these communities. Chief among those recommendations, and the primary reason we're here today, was the recommendation to develop or expand collaborative relationships across all organizations in an area that serve veterans. We know that lawyers can't solve all of a veteran's problems, and that legal issues are one among a veritable plethora of stressors that a veteran may experience. But we also know that the work that we and our colleagues in the legal community do on behalf of veterans is strengthened when we're part of a team working together to address veterans' needs in a comprehensive and holistic fashion. I am so excited to be here today, and especially to be accompanied by my boss, Will Gunn, LSC's General Counsel, and task force members Nicole Perez and Stephen Moss. I have had the privilege of learning from all of them over the past year plus, and I cannot think of a more enjoyable and knowledgeable group of people to hear from today. So with that, I'm going to turn to Will to kick off this discussion. Will, you've served veterans and service members in a variety of roles: as an Air Force JAG officer, as General Counsel of the VA, representing veterans in private practice, and now as General Counsel at LSC. You're also a veteran yourself. Can you tell us some of the key lessons learned you've picked up along the way about providing legal services to veterans?
Absolutely. And hello, everyone. With Stefanie, it is a pleasure to be part of this discussion today. Some things that I've learned, some of which have been surprising. For instance, I've learned that asking a person if they're a veteran isn't always a helpful question to ask. It is not an inclusive question in the sense that it means different things to different people. And what I've discovered is that there's great confusion with respect to exactly what constitutes a veteran. And essentially for our purposes, we'll be as inclusive as possible. And we'll be talking about anyone who served in the military is a veteran. And I'll even go wider than that. That includes people that are still serving in the military as well. So those active duty folks, those reservists, members of the Guard, as well as people that have been discharged from the military, that they're veterans. And that makes a difference. And hopefully we'll talk more about that. Another big thing that I've learned and that's made a great impression on me is the idea that legal issues play such a tremendous role, particularly in negative outcomes for veterans. And what I mean by that, I think one of the best examples is a survey instrument that was brought to my attention when I served at VA from 2009 to 2014. And the survey instrument is called the Challenge Survey, which stands for, it's an acronym standing for Community Homelessness Assessment, Local Education, and Networking Groups. This survey asks questions of veterans who are homeless and those who are at risk of being homeless, as well as people that are actually providing care and services to veterans at VA and in other settings as well. And I will tell you, this was absolutely shocking to me when I learned that they looked at the unmet needs of veterans who are at risk. And looking at the greatest unmet needs, 6 of the top 10 are legal needs. And there are such things as issues associated with legal assistance associated with family law, second, court fees and court fines, credit issues and debt collection issues, expungement of criminal records, child support issues, as well as tax issues. And there's some other issues as well that are not very far behind. This was surprising for me because when I think about when I came in and really got involved in this area, the thing that I thought that would be the greatest need would be help with respect to obtaining veterans related benefits. And while that need exists, there are a lot of people that operate in that space, but there are not enough people that operate in the space of meeting these other needs. And these other needs can have profound impacts and consequences on the lives of veterans. The other thing that I've learned is that there is a great correlation oftentimes between legal problems and medical problems. And that's been addressed in some settings by something known as formal medical legal partnerships. But it can also just be addressed informally by making sure that those legal needs are addressed. And finally, Stefanie, you touched on this, and that's the impact that collaboration can play in meeting these needs and making a difference in the lives of veterans as well as service members. And well, we can talk more about that later on.
Excellent. Thanks, Will. And I know, Nicole, you are, before you came into your new role, you were a veterans advocate for more than 10 years and have some familiarity with the issues that Will is talking about. So can you kind of give us a little experience on what the most common legal issues the veterans you worked with faced, and kind of how you worked with other partners to address them.
Yeah, I'd love to. Hi, everybody. Good morning from Los Angeles, or good afternoon from wherever you are. If you don't mind, I'm actually going to share a screen so we can kind of see and hear, depending on your learning style. We'll do all the things. So let me get this going for a second. You might see yourselves temporarily, and then I will slideshow. Okay, so hopefully you're able to see this. So hi again. So my name is Nicole. As Stefanie mentioned, for a little over 12 years, my work life was consumed by veterans advocacy. It's still truly my passion, though I'm now taking all those lessons learned and doing it in a slightly different way. And to answer Stefanie's question and to sort of expand on what Will was just talking about, I thought we could break down a little bit more on some of the legal barriers that veterans identified during that time when I was predominantly providing legal services for the veteran community. And usually what I would think of, what many people think of when they think about legal issues within the veteran community is something that might have, veteran or military in the name of the issues. So of course, accessing and maintaining veterans benefits is a critical problem that the majority of the clients that we see truly have. But I will give you this caveat. They have a veterans benefits issue, but it is fairly rare that they come to a legal agency seeking help with the veterans benefits issue. A lot of veterans don't realize that a lawyer can be the difference between a grant or a denial, or even getting a small amount of benefits or the maximum benefit that they deserve. So accessing and maintaining veterans benefits truly is a legal problem with a legal solution. And it's something we would want veterans to come see a legal partner to get help with. Of course, correcting military discharge upgrades or military discharge details, basically, ensuring that if they got an unjust or erroneous discharge, like an other than honorable discharge or some other form of less than honorable discharge status from the military, these are all things that lawyers can help with. But what I really want to emphasize are the things that don't have the word veteran or military in sort of that legal issue title. All of the things that you see here that Will mentioned. Maintaining housing stability is the number one issue that veterans need help with. And it truly, in most cases has nothing to do with the fact that they're a veteran. It has to do more with the fact that they're living in poverty, as do all of these other issues. Everything that you see here is what we might think of as a standard civil legal problem. But yet a lot of people still may not realize that this is a legal problem where a lawyer can help. And so one of the things that we've done over the years is we go to where veterans are at. We don't expect people to necessarily come to us. We go to them, help educate them, and really issue spot with them. Is this a problem that you're having? And is this something we can help with? And in fact, the last slide I'll show you with this question is this one here. And this is what, when we go out into the community, this is what people are in need of help with. That challenge report is not just a report, it's reality. But again, by and large, veterans may come to us because say they need help with housing. And the thing I'll point out here is this is numbers that we see when we go out into the community. Housing, on the other hand, is the number one issue we see when people are calling us for legal help. When we go out into the community, we're going typically to places where unhoused veterans stay or frequent. And so they're looking for help with things like taking care of their tickets or handling outstanding child support that they will never be able to afford to pay. And that family law or driver's license help. And usually what happens is they come to us for help with one issue that they're experiencing a legal crisis with. But during that interview with the veteran, we uncover a whole bevy of other issues that we can also help them with too. So pretty standard example is someone may come to us saying, hey, I need help clearing my criminal record. And we'll learn in that they also have a suspended driver's license. They also don't have enough income and they're entitled to veterans benefits. And maybe they have outstanding debt that we can try to take care of at the same time. So this is really to put a pin or a bow on this question. Really, the number one thing that I would say here is veterans have a lot of issues that are legal in nature. they don't know that they have an issue that's legal in nature, and they don't know that they may have multiple issues that are legal in nature, but that's where getting them connected to a lawyer is going to be really helpful.
So what does that mean for our friends in the audience, Nicole? So if you're not a lawyer, how do you, how can we help, or how can the partners here recognize these legal issues? How can we issue spot? How can they issue spot and help get their veterans connected with us?
Yeah, and I'm going to take us to a new slide just so you can see. We're going to get into some meat and potatoes, or if you're a vegetarian like me, the vegetables and potatoes of this.
Tofu and potatoes.
There you go. Thank you. Yeah, so, in addition to my lawyer hat, I have a master's in social work. I'm also a social worker. And I can tell you, if you're also someone like me who it's like, this is lovely, Nicole, but give me something tangible that I can take away with me after this training, I'm going to give you 5 things that you can take away. And we'll get to those in just a moment. But what I do want to say is, I am in no way going to be able to help empower you to feel fully confident in issue spotting, because this is something that we take a lifetime to do. It's a skill and experience that you never perfect. Really, as a social worker, one thing that I know case managers and social workers and those in the social services field do really well are biopsychosocial assessments. What you do really well is you look at a veteran as a whole person. And what I'm going to share with you are just some extra tools for that toolkit, but don't turn that whole person model off. I mean, if you hear someone is struggling with housing stability or income insecurity, or having issues with their employment or with their safety, any of those things, and likely all of those things, have a legal problem that a lawyer can help with. So again, just with that whole person idea in mind, anything to do with someone's stability, security, or safety, get them over to a lawyer. But here's some tools. So number 1, find some income red flags. And you're going to see some numbers here. And these numbers probably don't mean much to you where you live. I saw the list, and there doesn't seem to be many of us from California. But if you can find the numbers for where you live and write them down and have them available, you can very quickly see some income red flags. So if you see someone is getting SSI benefits or Social Security disability insurance or whatever your local kind of welfare benefit is, and that amount is being reduced or garnished for any reason, refer them to a lawyer. Another thing that you can do, which is one of my favorite things, it's one of the things that I'm most passionate about actually, is making sure that disabled wartime veterans get all of the veterans benefits that they're entitled to. And in fact, we still very regularly meet veterans who are entitled to this VA non-service connected pension benefit and don't know it. And the requirements couldn't be more straightforward. They have to be low income. And in 2022, that means their income is about at or less than $1,230 a month, with one caveat here, which is there are higher income limits for people who are married or have dependent children, as well as higher income limits for veterans who have more severe disabilities. So $1,230 a month. They have to have served during a period of war. It doesn't matter if it was, sitting here at home doing HR paperwork or overseas in an actual combat zone. It just needed to be during a period of war, which are, of course, any veteran who served from August 1990 essentially to the present is a Gulf War veteran, as well as our Vietnam era veterans. Those are the 2 largest period of war, wartime veterans. And then lastly, they have to be disabled. And in VA speak, disabled means that they have to be either 65 and older, or they're already receiving SSI or Social Security disability insurance. Of course, you can prove disability in other ways, but as someone who's issue spotting here, really what this means is if you're serving a veteran who gets SSI benefits and they serve during a period of war, chances are you can increase their income by almost 25% just by connecting them to someone who can help them apply for pension. Because in every single state, pension is going to be at least 20 to 25% more than SSI in that state. So this is a really easy thing that all of us can do to make sure that veterans increase their economic security. Second is look out for dischargeable debt. So a lot of disabled veterans can have their student loans discharged if those student loans are owed to the government rather than to a private agency. In fact, this is a pretty straightforward process. It's a 2-page piece of paper for a doctor to certify, and you can get tens of thousands of dollars of student loans discharged for disabled veterans. Other is veterans who owe back child support. We hear from a lot of veterans who are reluctant to return to the workforce because upwards of 65% of their wages can be deducted for back child support for children who may be 40 or older. Back child support never goes away, but every state also has a arrears discharge program where they can reduce child support by 90% if those arrears are owed to the state and not to a custodial parent. This is another really easy thing to look out for. And of course, you're not going to do the work to help them discharge the debts. You're just going to refer them to a lawyer and let us do the work. Here's some simple questions that you can ask. And if the answer is yes, get them to a lawyer. But again, the best thing that you can do, and really what I hope to leave you with is, once again, the number one thing you can do to promote legal wellness is not be reluctant in any way to just do our favorite hashtag of defer to refer. So if you just identify, once again, that someone is having issues with housing stability, income security, personal safety, or anything to do with the criminal justice system, defer to refer those individuals to a lawyer. And the last thing I'll leave you with before I turn it back to you, Stefanie, is one website you may want to check out once we're done today is one called statesidelegal.org. That's statesidelegal.org. On there, you can see places to find lawyers, as well as a legal navigator program that's specifically designed to help case managers connect with legal services. So hopefully this helps make your toolkit a little more robust. And that's going to be the end of my mini slideshow.
Awesome. That's great, Nicole. Thank you for all of those really helpful tools. That it's always good to have tools, always good to have issue spotting, but what it's also good to have is partners. So I'm going to look to Stephen for this one, because when I think of developing partnerships between nonprofit organizations or other veteran service organizations and lawyers and making those connections, the person I think of is Stephen. So Stephen, you've been in the position of having to develop relationships with legal providers to help your veterans. So I would really love it if you could talk some about Mission United and how you did that work. How did you identify the lawyers and how did you bring them to the table?
Thank you, Stefanie, and hi, everyone. I'm delighted to be here. Let me just give you a very brief overview of Mission United in case some of you don't know what Mission United is. It's a holistic approach to assist veterans and their families reacclimate to civilian life and navigate the system. And it's a program that was started by the United Way of Broward County, Greater Fort Lauderdale, where I am, and is now part of the national platform of United Way Worldwide and is in 26 cities. It's all about collaboration and working together within the community and leaving egos at the door, not worried about who gets credit, but focusing on taking care of our veterans and their families who need assistance. And that's been the benchmark for success. And what we did is when we decided as United Way to start this program in our community, to reach out to our local veterans and their families, was to talk to every organization we could identify in the Greater Fort Lauderdale community that was providing services to veterans and their families, including the VA. And first we asked them, do you want United Way to get involved? And secondly, where are the gaps and where can we help? Everyone said, yes, we want you to get involved. Everyone said, we need a catalyst in the community to bring us all together because we're not sure who provides what services and where we can go to get the services that are being requested, but we don't know to whom to send them. And that's really been a key, I think, to the success of all of our organizations around the country that are providing services to veterans and families is that collaboration and knowing who these other organizations are, including legal. So in asking the other organization community where are the gaps, we were told number one was legal. We're not connected to legal. Number two is housing, and number three is employment. So we tackled those issues first. And the first thing that I did in this fledgling program that we were just starting was I met with the two leaders of the local legal aid organizations in our community and told them about this program, that we would like to really focus on veterans and their families and provide these services that Nicole has pointed out to you. And they immediately said, yes, we want to get involved. And that is, I think, your best source of reference is your local legal aid. Now, some of y'all are in small communities. You may not have a legal aid office in your community, but there will be regional offices that will serve you. And if you can't find your legal aid organization in your community, reach out to Stefanie at Legal Services Corporation or any of us on the panel, and we'll get that contact for you, because that is truly the key. When talking about collaboration, I remember going to Jacksonville, which is my hometown, to help start Mission United there a few years ago. And they invited all the organizations they could identify to come in the room together to meet, to talk about whether they want United Way to do Mission United in that community. There were 50 organizations there, and everyone said they did not know half the people in the room. And that's kind of the fatal. Of course, now Jacksonville is flourishing. They all know each other. They're all referring things to each other. And it's all about, providing these warm handoffs, whether you're providing direct services or you're doing warm handoffs, is knowing who within your community where you can get help, where veterans may be requesting it that your organization can't provide. Other resources that I utilized was reaching out to all the law firm, all the lawyers I knew and the other volunteers in our community to say, we're starting this new program. We'd like you to get involved. A lot of the large law firms around the country, most of them have pro bono programs already in place. And the smaller firms as well. I've yet to meet a lawyer who did not want to provide pro bono legal services to a veteran. It is a passion of lawyers. It's a love. Lawyers love representing children and they love representing veterans. So it's just finding that lawyer and talking to your friends who may be lawyers to see if they're willing to take a matter. But the local legal aid organization is really your key to finding the lawyers with the experience, and they will teach other lawyers in the community about VA benefits and help them get certified by the VA to represent veterans on some of these other issues, in addition to the civil issues that Nicole spelled out. And Stefanie, if I may, I want to just give you one quick story.
I love a story. You know that, Stephen.
It's sort of the power of collaboration. We had a veteran contact us and said, I'm 3 months in arrears and about to be foreclosed in my home. And can you just give me 3 months of mortgage payments and then I'll be in great shape? And Mission United's answer was no, but will you tell us why are you 3 months in arrears, and maybe we can help you there. And, well, I lost my job, but I'm close to getting another one. So we said, well, let's stop right there. So let's refer this to our employment group in our community to help you find a job. And let's find a lawyer for you who will talk with your lender and tell the lender your situation and ask the lender to forbear and to wait and be more patient. And everything was successful. It's rare that when you go to a lender or any company where a veteran may be in dire straits and you say, I'm doing this pro bono, I'm not charging a fee, they open their hearts and it really, really is successful when it works. So it's not about putting a Band-Aid, it's about changing lives forever.
Awesome. Thank you for that story, Stephen. That is like the great example of why collaboration matters and that we all know here. I'm just going to kind of throw this out to all three of you for your thoughts. And I know that there are partners here from all over and from all types of organizations, from direct service providers. I think I saw that there were a number of folks here from one of the local community veterans engagement boards. But like for all of you, like, what are your thoughts on strategies for developing relationships with legal aid providers and integrating other attorneys into existing collaborations? You know, I am somewhat, shy about getting involved into interactions. And so if someone invites me to the table, I'm kind of like, check out the dynamics, look at the lay of the land, see how the providers interact with one another, and kind of figure out like where we fit in. How would you recommend that community partners reach out to lawyers? And on the same side of the coin, I always tell everyone I'm not a litigator, because I ask questions that are like 5 questions in one. So how would you recommend that community partners, like, what kinds of talking points should they take to attorneys? And similarly, how would you talk to attorneys about getting involved in a collaboration and explaining like why that magnifies their power? I'm just going to ask all of you to jump in as you like.
I'll start it off. During my time at VA, I did quite a bit of traveling around the country, and it reminds me of what Stephen was saying about lawyers wanting to help veterans and children. And I was often asked how by lawyers in different settings, private law firms, nonprofits, just a variety of situations, what can we do to help veterans? And so if I'm in a community and I don't have a partnership now, a couple of things that I would do, I would reach out to local bar associations to let them know that you're looking to partner with lawyers in order to provide services to veterans. Let them know what you're doing and see if they have any recommendations for you. That's one thing. I also put into the chat a contact information for VA's Department of Veterans Affairs Medical Legal Partnership Task Force, and they are looking to help make contacts with different organizations, among other things. And so that would be a place that I would reach out to let them know that you are interested in not necessarily having a formal medical legal partnership. I think right now, VA has about 32 of those around the country, but they have 170 free legal clinics that are hosted on VA facilities. There may be some things that are going on in your area already that you just don't know about. They can be enhanced in order to get veterans the help that they need. So those are a couple of things that I would recommend doing.
Yeah. I would amplify what Will has said about going to the local bar association, talking to them. That's what we did with Michigan United. We went to our local bar associations. They selected a point person to work with us. But also legal aid is a huge key to go to as well. And go to your local legal aid organizations. This is also something that works both ways, because the legal aid organizations, the bar associations, lawyers who are interested in assisting veterans and their families, they want to know what other resources are out there too. They want to know what your organization is doing, because they want to be able, when a veteran is with them and has a legal problem, to identify some non-legal problems and where they can send them within your communities as well. So it really works both ways. You're really giving you an opportunity to showcase what your organization does and to be able to get referrals from them as well.
No, Stephen, that's so true. I started my career as a legal services attorney in Washington, D.C., working with people who were homeless or at risk of becoming homeless, and knowing where to refer people and having connections at places like the housing authority, like the local food pantries and health clinics was so critical to making sure that every need that my client had was met and that they could thrive in all those areas instead of just having me deal with their debt collection issue or just deal with their housing issue. It's so true that this is why we work better together. Nicole, do you have anything to throw in here in the couple minutes we have left for this discussion?
Yeah, the only thing that I'll add is kind of harking back to the fact that while there may be many legal services agencies that have a veterans project, like for example, at Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles, where I work, we have our Veterans Justice Center. Most don't. So I would say don't just look for the legal services organizations that have veteran specific or projects or work groups. All of us, all legal service agencies serve veterans. They just may do it in a bit more of a siloed fashion. So they might help the veteran with their eviction, and then another team helps them with their government benefits problem, and another team does their child support. So reach out to those legal aids, even if they don't have a veterans project. We all want to do good work together. And so connect with whomever in that organization. I would say oversees maybe their client work, their intake work, or their housing work. Those three things right now are probably going to get you in the door. And then, of course, once you're in the door, then they'll do their internal movement to make sure that the veterans get all of the right services that they need to thrive. So that would be my last point there, is that don't be shy to connect with any legal services organization, even if they don't, advertise on their website that veteran communities are a specific population that they're targeting.
Yeah, go ahead, Stephen.
Real quick, great point, Nicole. The other great aspect about legal aid organizations, these are organizations with great hearts. Everybody who works there is probably making less money than they can make in private practice, and they're doing it because they love what they do and they have a great heart. And with our legal aid service of Broward County and Coast to Coast Legal Aid in Greater Fort Lauderdale, they reached out to every lawyer in the community. They did the legwork for us and did email blast and went to the Bar Association meetings and talked about the Legal Services Pro Bono project of Mission United. And we now have over 400 lawyers in Greater Fort Lauderdale who have volunteered to provide these services. So I can't emphasize anymore, how important it is to reach out. They will be receptive to you, whether they do this type of work or not. They'll find lawyers who do.
No, that's absolutely true. And I think it's really important to build on both what Nicole and Stephen said before we go on to questions, because so many of the unmet legal needs that veterans experience are not veteran specific issues. They're not discharge upgrades. They're not necessarily VA benefits issues. They are the kind of housing issues, family law issues, consumer debt issues that anybody can face. Any legal aid provider who works on those issues can assist the veteran, because those don't require some specialized education. And so I think that's a really important point to drive home. I had shared with Emily just this morning, LSC received a request to publicize a guidance letter that the Civil Rights Division at the U.S. Department of Justice had just issued. And the topic of the letter is around evictions and civil rights issues that may come up in evictions. And it's relevant to this audience because one of the areas of relief that they wanted people to be aware of were the eviction protections that arise under the Service Members Civil Relief Act. So I had shared that with Emily to share with all of you. It's, again, it's the defer to refer thing. If you have a client, if you are working with a veteran who is facing eviction, it is possible that there is a Service Member Civil Relief Act problem in there. So defer to refer, and that's a thing that the attorney may need to think about when they get the case from you. That's it. Emily?
Great. Thank you all. I'm going to pass it over to Hunter to lead us for the Q&A. For everyone who's tuned in, please feel free to drop some of your questions in the chat. Don't be shy to make them location specific, or you could ask something broad if that's helpful as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for your work and the contributions and the insight that you guys have shared today. It's been incredibly beneficial, I know, and I'm sure our local partners and grantees and others on the call are excited to hear more. We do have one question to start us off so far. So many of our partners work in small communities that may not have a local legal aid office. If they reach out to a regional legal aid office, what would be helpful for the lawyers to know about their veteran community? Any kind of information that might be beneficial?
That's a great question. I'm going to look to Stephen and Nicole to start with this one. Thoughts?
I can start us off. Just to say that, the silver lining of the pandemic is that we've all gotten very good now at providing remote legal services. So it doesn't really matter anymore that you don't have someone in your immediate community. If you have a legal services office in your region, they'll be able to provide legal services to that veteran should that veteran qualify for the services. And that's the other piece that I'll end on and have Stephen jump in, is that depending upon the legal services agency that you're connected with, they're going to have different eligibility requirements. Mm-hmm. So if you hear a no from one legal aid, we can't serve this person because they're over our income limit, or they're over our asset limit, or potentially they don't have a citizenship status that we can assist them with. Although I'd say that's pretty darn rare. There's going to be another legal services agency that can help. And quick example, in Los Angeles, we have several different legal aids here. Some are LSC funded, some are not. Some have no income limits. Some have very specific types of legal issues that they can help with, and others have more. So we are our own kind of referral network. So if somebody goes to a legal services agency here who doesn't do citation defense and they know we do, they'll send the veteran our way. Similarly, if somebody comes to us who may be over income for our services, we'll send them their way. So just know that it's not a kind of one size meets all approach, but we're all going to be able to serve folks remotely now, and we do it really well.
And if you have trouble identifying the legal aid organization in your community or in your region, let Stefanie know. We will help identify it for you and get back to you personally and make sure you get connected.
Yep, absolutely. We are happy to do that. And I will, I'm actually going to pick on our grantees, Colorado Legal Services, because they are a statewide grantee based in Denver and serving the great state of Colorado, which of course has a small handful of population centers, but otherwise has a very, has a widely dispersed rural population. They have been leaders for several years in doing remote services, even before the pandemic, just because of the nature of their service area. And so if you are in a situation like that, where there's an organization that is serving your area, but does not necessarily have a local presence, I think the kinds of things you would want to approach the provider with are, demographics about who your veteran population is. What are the most common legal issues that you see, or, kind of the most common issues that they're having? If it's people who are all having problems with, the same landlord, or if they're having difficulties with income maintenance in that area, employment in that area. I'm trying to think if you're, is your veteran population, is it an aging population? Is it a population that has many people from diverse backgrounds, kind of as much information as you can provide to the legal aid provider to understand what the issues are and which, who they're talking to. So that they can help identify whether they can do their own remote services when you call them, or whether your veterans have cases that might be better handled by a pro bono partner, because they're very resource intensive. But that's what I can think of off the top of my head. Love you, Colorado.
Wonderful. That's super helpful. And I know offers some great resources and kind of just really broadens that knowledge of how to connect. We do have another question. So it looks like pension, Donald Latchman with the West Care Foundation asked about, and I believe that's our local partner in Washington, if I remember correctly off the top of my head.
That's correct.
Just trying to remember off the top of my head. It looks like he has a question about pension eligibility and income deductions for reoccurring medical expenses. I don't know if.
Can I clarify that?
Please do.
Regularly when we contact VA representatives at the VA and refer a client for a pension for aid and attendance, homebound allowance, those sort of things, they will hear their initial income. They'll say, oh, $4,000 a month, you don't qualify automatically, and they send them back. And what they don't ask that second question about reoccurring chronic medical eligible medical expenses. And so it's not unusual for them to be spending 80% of their income on aid and assistance, bath aid, getting to the doctor, all those reoccurring medical expenses that come out of their monthly income. And so our challenge often is that the ignorance about that element of qualifying for a pension that's income based and not taking the deductions that are allowed to qualify. And just your thoughts on that. Is that something you've run into?
That is all Nicole.
Absolutely. And I'll even, I'll widen that a little bit. The other thing that we often find ourselves educating VA on not only has to do with medical expenses. So for those of you who may not be familiar with VA non-service connected pension, one of the really cool things about that benefit is that it only takes into account someone's countable income. And countable income is your gross income minus any deductible medical expenses, including some other things. So if a veteran is spending, is living in an assisted living and is spending, the majority of their income towards that assisted living, all of that money that they pay in assisted living is deducted from their gross income. So their countable income could be $0 and they would be entitled to the full rate of pension. So it's definitely something that we need to do to educate the VA on and, do it when we're applying for the benefits. So we actually, one of the things we always like to do is do the heavy lifting on behalf of the veteran. So we would do the full application, submit all the paperwork that the VA needs to get the decision right the first time. But the other thing that I'll point out to you that is something that we have to educate the VA on regularly has to do with the veteran's discharge status and their eligibility for benefits. So this isn't just for pension. This is also for compensation. This is for the HUD-VASH vouchers that veterans can get to help with housing stability and housing subsidies, really for any veteran's benefit. And so we have seen very often the VA will deny a veteran a benefit because they have a less than honorable discharge. Usually it's an other than honorable discharge or a bad conduct discharge, without going through the VA's own requirement to perform a character of discharge determination. And that COD, the character of discharge determination, will determine whether or not the veteran qualifies for VA benefits, even though they have this other than honorable or bad conduct discharge. And so that's the other thing, that if you hear a veteran experiencing problems because the VA is not taking into account their, deductible medical expenses, or they're just, denying them and they're not allowing them to even apply in some circumstances because of a less than honorable discharge, that's again where the defer to refer comes and get them over to a lawyer who will advocate alongside them to get what they're entitled to.
Do you have anything to add, Stephen? I saw you come off a mute.
Nothing directly on that. That's really Nicole's expertise, but a thought in regard to questions that are coming up and finding lawyers that I just wanted to share with everyone that I just thought about. The VA has a certification process of lawyers that take certain CLE courses. I've actually taken courses that Nicole has taught, and she's a great teacher. But there is a website, and I think, Stefanie, we can find it, maybe send it to the group, where you can go on and find out every lawyer in the country who is VA certified to handle cases and what geographic area they're in, and that may help you make identity in your local community.
Wonderful. That's super helpful. I want to be mindful of everybody's time. We have approximately 2 minutes. So I am going to let Deirdre close us out. I thank you all for your questions and being so willing to answer everything for us as they come in. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Hunter. Hello, everyone. I am Deirdre Armstrong, the Director of Local Partnerships at the Foundation. It's wonderful to see so many Got Your Six partners on the call, and especially two of our brand new local partners. I see Bethany in Oregon and Donna out in Connecticut. Really excited to see you joining the call today. Just a big, deep thank you to our panelists, Stephen, Stefanie, Will, Nicole. I know that I learned so much. I was over here feverishly writing down and visiting some of the websites that you guys mentioned. I was especially struck by one of the quotes one of you mentioned. It's not about putting on a Band-Aid, it's about changing lives. And I really am gonna be thinking about this webinar as I go throughout my day and my week, and just really thank you for sharing your expertise with us today. We will follow up this webinar with an email with contact information and the many resources shared. I know it was a lot to capture. And just a reminder, this webinar will live on the Bob Woodruff Foundation website. So if you missed a part of it, you joined us late, or if you have a colleague you think would appreciate hearing the material, it will live on our website. And with that, I think we're at our hour mark. Just to thank you again, and I hope everyone has a safe and wonderful holiday season.
Thank you so much for having us, and thank you everyone for being here today. We look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Happy holiday.